getting the right person in the right role right now on the Church Revitalization Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast, brought to you by the Malphurs Group team, where each week we tackle important, actionable topics to help churches thrive. And now, here's your hosts, Scott Ball and AJ Mathieu.
Welcome to the Church Revitalization Podcast. My name is Scott Ball. I'm joined by my friend and co-host, AJ Mathieu. I like what you did in the teaser.
You like that?
Good.
3 rights,
right,
no wrongs.
Three rights does make a right. 3 rights makes a U-turn.
Right person, right role, right now. Let's get into it, Scott. Temperament matters.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, we're talking about temperament today. So temperament is, I like this word rather than personality. I think personality is maybe a broader category than what we're talking about.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah.
You can use them a little bit interchangeably. Like if we're talking about a shape assessment, the P in shape is personality. And I don't think you'd want to use T there because I'm not sure what that would spell, but it's probably not something appropriate. So personality is fine in that instance, but temperament, I like the word temperament. And in Aubrey's book, Maximizing Your Effectiveness, for those of you watching on the YouTubes, you can see the cover of that book right there. Maximizing Your Effectiveness, he uses the word temperament to describe it, and he is an advocate in the book of using the DISC as a framework for understanding temperament, and that's I think a very helpful framework, and we're going to talk about that today. So I don't think that temperament is necessarily something that the average person is thinking about when it comes to volunteer placement, unless you're using shape. But I just don't know that people are usually thinking about this and how important it is in getting people in the right spot, and why some people struggle so much in a particular volunteer role might not have to do with their gifting or their skill, but just about temperament. So we're going to be talking about that.
It'll be a great conversation, a riveting conversation. If you want to, I'm just going to give it a little shout out. Was it a year ago, Scott? We did the deep dive on the DISC. Was it 2024? Might have been 2023. Regardless, in today's show notes, in your podcast app or on YouTube, I'll put links in there because we had done a deep dive on the DISC. So we did 4 weeks of DISC to go really deeper on that. So we'll have links to that.
It was very popular. People were very excited. You'll just have to trust us on that.
But anyway, yeah, if you want to go a lot deeper, we're not going to go deep on the 4 types of temperament in the DISC today. We're speaking more about how does this relate to volunteer roles in the church? Why does it matter? Why should you care about it as a leader so that you can get the right people into the right place at your church?
We're going to circle back to this at the end of the episode just to kind of peek ahead. But I want to say on the front end, for those of you who maybe have short attention spans, one of the reasons why we're wanting to bring this up and talk about this today is we have a new resource inside the Healthy Churches Toolkit that is a divine design discovery tool that includes a simple DISC assessment. And when people, you'll have your own custom link for your kind of connected to your church's account, and that you can share publicly with the people in your church, and they will take this assessment and it will tell them what their DISC type is and spiritual gifts, and it will make some volunteer role recommendations based on not just their gifting, but also their temperament. And then that will be shared with you. You'll get an email notification. You'll also be able to log into the toolkit and see a dashboard of everybody in your church who has taken it. You'll be able to sort. You are able to sort all of those results by temperament type. So who are all the people who are a C on the DISC? Who are all the people in my church who have an S? And depending on what you're looking for when you're forming a team or a committee or an ad hoc group or whatever, you can start to build teams around temperament. It's a really powerful tool, and it's included in the all plus accounts in the Healthy Churches Toolkit. So you can try that out free for 7 days. If you go to healthychurchestoolkit.com, sign up free for 7 days, test it out, give it to your staff, give it to your elders, give it to a small team and let them try it out. I will make one note and say the volunteer recommendations that it makes are generic because we have to use it across the board. It doesn't account for things like what their passions would be. So it might make a recommendation about kids ministry, but you might hate kids, or it might say something about music ministry and you can't play an instrument or carry a tune in a bucket. But it gives 5 recommendations. So out of that 5, there might be 1 or 2 that resonate with you based on your temperament and your gifting. And also, I would say it only is going to make recommendations on things that are level 1 or level 2 using leadership pipeline language. It's not going to make a recommendation for elder or make a recommendation for a staff position. It's going to focus on lower level type positions because that's what it's designed for. So it's a really powerful tool. I'm so glad that we have this inside the toolkit now. So go to healthychurchestoolkit.com, try it free for 7 days, and take advantage of that.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that at the end as well. But I thought it would be helpful for us to have a conversation about why temperament is important in light of that tool.
Yep. All right. Well, let's keep on going. What is temperament? Why does it matter? Well, as Scott, you already said, I think there's kind of a difference between personality and temperament. Yeah, I mean, the temperament, I think, maybe has some, I think, more consistency across people, and as sort of a baseline as to how you relate to the world and to others. Whereas maybe personality adds more nuance to it and has more specificity and probably just a broader range of reactions and emotions and all kinds of things. Which I think is why, the disc generally as 4 categories pretty much works out okay, for most people. Of course, the disc sometimes has like a dominant trait and a secondary that might be adjacent to it. But I think overall it works pretty well to kind of just get at a general idea. But these things are important because, from that perspective, that it is sort of like this foundational piece of how God has wired us. You can sort of eliminate things. It helps you to narrow things down. And, when people are thinking about, well, from your perspective, a leader, hopefully, calling people into action to serve in the ministry, to find their place in the kingdom. This is a very broad ask, right? We're just throwing that out. It's telling everybody, hey, God has made you, for service in the kingdom. And so like, okay, what is that? Like you're throwing the world at me. So let's try to narrow this down a little bit. And, having at least a couple of tools like, spiritual gifts and a temperament indicator can help to bring this into a little bit closer range that we can start looking at things. So, finding the fit is what we're going for.
Yeah, and temperament helps to maybe differentiate a little bit between skill versus fit. 2 people can have a similar skill set, but the fit might be dependent on temperament. So let's just give a concrete example. 2 people can have a gift of teaching, a teaching gift or a teaching skill, have the ability to communicate really well. But in a small group environment, a more S type, which we're going to talk about these types here in just a second, but sort of a more people-oriented, softer, shepherding type temperament is maybe a better fit in a small group environment than a fast, high-charged person who's a D, who's driving, might be really aggressive in a small group environment and not necessarily be as effective in that kind of a role. But they could both be skilled teachers, and so maybe one is better up on a stage or in a boardroom, or in those kinds of environments where that teaching skill has to be directed, and versus a softer approach, more shepherding, that teaching skill, same skill but different fit based on temperament. So it's about communication style, it's about pace of work, it's about a preference for people versus tasks, and all of those things play a role in helping a person find their fit and what volunteer role might be most fitting for them.
That's a great example. I mean, you're kind of speaking to my, personal thing. I enjoy teaching adults. Don't so much enjoy in the younger gen environment.
But I think that's maybe more passion versus even temperament.
It could be. It could be.
Like,
but
that's
even the
maybe
example that you're talking about, I mean, I at a previous church, I enjoyed teaching. We had sort of a Sunday school environment. It was more fellowship driven than like a classic Sunday school. But I was just one of several teachers in there, and I enjoyed that. I like conveying information. I like providing.
But it's still a room of probably 30 or 40 people, or 20, 30 people.
Yeah,
and not 5 people.
Yeah. Because I don't really have, I don't have like the shepherding temperament going on. So
right. Tell me how you feel. Yeah. I think we've hinted at this, and I know we're not doing a deep dive on DISC because we already have done that, as you mentioned, and you can get the links in the description below. But let's do a very fast sort of overview. I think it might be helpful. And I really love the DISC. I'm a big fan. I don't even know if there's a DISC association. If there is one, I'm not getting paid by them. But I really like the DISC because it's just 4 categories and it's easy to sort of sort people. It's not perfect, but it doesn't have to be. When we're talking about volunteer recruitment, we really don't need to account for every nuance. Everybody is a unique sunflower and all of that. All of that's true. But when it comes to volunteer recruitment, we need sort of some quick and dirty principles to apply and go, okay, where is this person best going to fit? And 16 different types or 9 different Enneagrams and the wings. And it's just too much.
Mm-hmm.
The DISC is easy. It's easy to think about and it's easy to sort, which is helpful for volunteer recruitment. So do you want to drive this? 4 types?
I'll do the run through, and you can jump in with more detail if you so desire, Scott Ball. The first one is the D type. So we're just going to order the D type: task-oriented, fast-paced type of people, thriving in leadership roles, directing things, problem solving. Some of the areas in the church that they might do well in: security team leads, event coordination. Projects, strategic planning. I mean, I'm a D. Again, I enjoy teaching, but I like teaching adults. I like to be able to, convey information quickly, maybe handle some challenging questions, that kind of thing, and then keep going. So, so that's your D types. Your I type personalities. This is like the influencer type, people oriented, also fast paced, like a D, but more relational, high energy. Good inviting people, drawing people into something, encouraging, hosting. Greeters, great in this role. Hospitality people, social, kid things.
Think social butterfly, kind of in butterfly in the sense that they like to kind of pop into a conversation. And then they are ready to hop into another conversation, like going from flower to flower. They are not the kind of person who's really good one-on-one for a long time. They start to get bored with that conversation or insecure. Lots of times I-type people are actually, they present themselves as very friendly and very social, but they're actually very guarded and don't let a lot of people in close. But they like fast pace. But they also like being around a lot of people and a lot of movement.
These are the people that make kids camp happen. Oh my gosh, the running on 105% until 1 a.m. And you're like, where do they get this energy? They're the ones up there on stage with shaving cream, coming out of their ears and still
high
super
energy.
Excited about it.
Yeah. And not in those environments. They're also they're good for ideas. They usually have a new idea every minute. Great on a stage. Like if you want to get people pumped up about something, put them up. They usually are pretty good with words. Their temperament exudes energy, and people are attracted to that. They want to be involved in what that person's doing. They often have sort of magnetic personalities.
Yeah. The next one, the S type. This is going to be, again, people-oriented, but more one-on-one relational. They really care about people. The S, you could say, is steady or shepherding, loyal and dependable people. They care about other people's feelings. They have this a very compassionate side to them frequently.
The
They
golden
really,
retriever kind of person.
yeah. Some of these fits, care team members. They could be helping to lead in a small group situation or lead a small group situation. Maybe some could be more behind the scenes roles. In discipleship spaces. So they're great people to have coffee with, talk about what's going on with life. You can
usually less confident on a stage. They can be good teachers. I mean, a lot of pastors are S types, and they're really good in the pulpit. Because they've prepared, so they kind of know what they're going to do. But the less good if you spring something on them and say, "Hey, will you run up there and tell the people about such and such thing?" Not as good on the fly as they are when they're prepared. So I don't want to say that an S type can't be good on a stage, but they usually not their favorite. There might be some anxiety around that.
Yeah.
Because they're often worried about how people perceive them. They don't want to stir the pot. They're not big on conflict. They don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And so they don't like being put on the spot and having to make a decision. They're not really good at making any decisions, actually. If they never had to make a decision, it would be too soon.
Yeah. And then finally, the C type people, task oriented for sure, driven by process. They're detail focused, back office people, behind the scenes people, very analytical, precise, good with information, like structure. Your tech and media team, men and women can do well here. Finance, administration. Systems people. They can probably help you design maybe a flow of work, but they're not going to then get up on stage and explain it to everybody very clearly or simply or with much enthusiasm. These integral for keeping things running well.
Totally. So just so you know, generally as sort of a breakdown of the population, the most rare types are the pure Ds, and the pure Is are the most rare. A lot of people have a blend. They'll be like predominantly a C or predominantly an S and have a blend if they're an S of an I, or if they're a C, have a blend of D. But the pure Ds and pure Is are the least common types, and then most common types an S, and then the second most common type would be a C, and then I think the third after that is an I, and then the least common is D. I think that's generally speaking. Don't hold me to that, but that's roughly the breakdown. So you're going to have more S's and C's and then I's and your fewest D's, which is why leadership is such a challenge in the church. But also it's a hard thing because it's hard to find a spiritually mature and healthy D, because very often they got some toxicity in them, and that takes some time to root that out. And you don't want to. A D is a good leader, but an unprepared D is a toxic leader. So you got to be on the lookout for those things. So let's talk about signs of misalignment. How can we know if someone's not in the right role? If someone is burning out, it may be that you've got too much responsibility on them, and so we need to take a look at your leadership pipeline and make sure that we're divvying up the roles correctly. It may be that someone is volunteering too much, or they're serving in too many roles. If you've got people who are doing 3 or 4 different volunteer positions, they're probably not a great fit for all of those, or it's just too many. The truth is that when you have somebody in their right role that aligns with their temperament and their gifting, it's life-giving to serve and not life-draining to serve. They like what they're doing. They choose to do it. There's a lot of work that AJ and I do. We both work for the Malfirst Group and get paid for our work, but there's all kinds of work that he and I both do that it'd be hard to argue that we get paid for it. And there's extra work that we take on, not just because we're interested in getting paid for it, but because we love it. It's life-giving to do the work. And there's all kinds of things that he and I both have done for free because we care and because we enjoy it. And the same's true for volunteers in your church. When they're never getting paid because they're volunteers, but when it's something that they love, it's a joy to do it. And that's how you know when someone's in the right spot. But when someone wants to quit, they lack joy, they're burning out, that is a sign, usually the number one sign, that they're in a wrong role more than that they're necessarily overburdened. Because people who are in the right role will voluntarily take on more responsibility, not be trying to shove it off.
Yeah. This is an area that we really have to be careful of. And I think that's why, this episode is important. I mean, just having this tool for you in the toolkit is important, because so often, Scott, we see people burn out in volunteer roles, and it is for a variety of reasons, and certainly could be a temperament mismatch for sure. So having this awareness for you as a leader is really important, so that you don't. You want people in the right place. First of all, they're going to perform best. They're going to be happiest in the right role. And it is possible to burn out somebody that is in the right role. I mean, I've certainly seen that before as well.
Totally. Yeah.
Which
it is
definitely
possible.
Yeah. It leads into other areas of leadership pipeline design that we have to have right to make sure that doesn't happen as well. But yeah, I think this just reinforces how important temperament is in getting it right, having at least a basic understanding of it.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap this up by talking about helping people find their fit. I'm going to reiterate what I said at the beginning, which is you need a tool to help with this. You need a system for this, and then you need tools to help facilitate that system. This is maybe one of the most common questions that we get is around volunteer recruitment: is how can we recruit more volunteers? And the number one tip that we give churches is you need to help people understand how God has designed them, what is their divine design, and then how does that apply to the real world? What positions best fit with that design? And you don't need the Healthy Churches Toolkit to do this. We've been equipping churches to do this for years before we had this tool. But this makes it way easier, cuts down on a lot of the manual work that churches were having to do. And so I would really encourage you to give this a shot. Go to healthychurchestoolkit.com and try it for yourself. See if it works. See if it makes recommendations. I've been really encouraged. I've had a lot of people take it, and people who I know and people who are in ministry, they maybe are a staff person, but I'm reading the description of them and the recommendations made for them. And there's usually at least one or two things I go, that describes them perfectly. And if they were a new volunteer, it really would line up with their skills and with their abilities and with the way that God has designed them. And we've even built this in a way where it's not just static stuff. There are static components, but it also generates a custom message to that person to encourage them and to help move them along. So, it's just so helpful, I think, to have a tool to help you get people connected. It doesn't do all the work. You still have to follow up with those people, but at least now you can have a conversation based on some piece of data and go, hey, you took this assessment and it said this. What resonated with you? What did you think it got right? What did you think was maybe a little bit off? What's something about you that you maybe didn't even know about yourself? And what would you like to do next? And that is the key thing, empowering people with the next step of, well, let me test drive this role and give people that freedom to try out a position without having to commit to it for a lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. This is an area that when implemented, you're just going to see huge benefits come back. This is going to bear a lot of ministry fruit in your church, and could really, I mean, I think could be a significant game changer, especially if you have felt kind of maybe stuck. Your church might be, feeling plateaued, or you could even be declining. Helping to realign in your volunteer roles can really be life-giving in the church on an individual basis and to the church as a whole. And then hopefully we see that manifest outwardly also. So yeah, I think this is a great area to work in. Get your greatest C people at work on this. Make sure you get a sub account for them if you're not going to be the one that would take this on. But this is going to be worth the investment for sure. This plays into like a bigger, this is a piece into the bigger leadership pipeline design that Scott mentioned earlier as well. And so, yeah, if you're kind of feeling maybe this is resonating with you, but you're also feeling like, golly, we didn't even have a really good idea of what's going on with our volunteers. It feels like we never have enough people. We're not sure what to do next. That is a great time to be looking at leadership pipeline design. So reach out to us if you'd like to
training
talk
for that in the toolkit as well.
Yeah. We've got a lot of resources for that, and we work with a lot of churches constantly doing that work. So yeah, we are here to help you with this. It really is something that would be transformational.
Or if from last month you started going through the Build Groups course, and there's a whole section in there about recruiting more leaders. If you were to put a bunch of people in your church through this, you could start to identify people who would be good based on temperament and go, who are all the people who have an S type or an I type temperament who'd be good group leaders? Or if you have a Sunday school model, who are all the people who have more of like a D or an I type who have a teaching gift, or you can, that can help you make your list because who are the people who have that gifting and skill.
Yeah, man, absolutely. This is Scott, I love everything about this. This is a great episode. This is an essential building block to a healthy church. So I hope that you'll really think about this and want to jump into it. And okay, yeah, there's going to be lots of links below for the deep dive that we did on the disc to get into the toolkit and other resources. So be sure and check that out. We sure are glad you are with us. We're going to talk a little bit more about divine design next week as well. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see you over there then.